Hi, this is Shannon Port, and I am going live today on Friday the 13th for the Pisces full moon. And it's so good to be here. It's so good to be back. I'm just returning. I was away for the Virgo new moon, but we're going to cover a few of the really important details in this video. And so I'm also using live stream with Google Hangouts for the first time. So I think everything is going well, and it's really good to be here. So today we are talking about a really, really powerful topic. We're going to talk about, I named the video, the resurrection of emotional power and sovereignty. And so we're going to talk about the archetype of Pisces. We are actually meeting on Friday the 13th, and Friday the 13th has huge meaning in the collective consciousness because it represents all kinds of superstition. 13 is the number of the death archetype in the major arcana. And so there's many secrets around the number 13. 13 is also the number of the divine feminine wisdom and of the goddess. It represents one of the most heightened powers that we have as human beings. And actually it's Pisces, the Pisces Virgo axis, that really delivers this power. Virgo is the sign of the Virgin, which has a deep esoteric meaning having to do with our consciousness and the purity of our consciousness that builds our auric field and our body of love. And Pisces is often associated with, I'm good, chat's working. I'm glad to see chat's working. Oh, perfect, on this new platform. Pisces represents the Christic force. So often, even in religion, you'll see the sign of the fish. And that's because Pisces is a water sign, and it represents the deep power of our subconscious mind. It's the 12th house. It's so deep that Pisces is the layer of consciousness that's completely hidden from our conscious mind. It's the most powerful. It's the most powerful layer of consciousness, but it's completely hidden from us. How interesting is it that our deepest power, our greatest depth, which is associated with the divine feminine, is completely hidden from us. It fell to the very bottom, and it's Pisces is the archetype of retrieval. It's the archetype associated with the archetype of Christ and the resurrection. And this is so deep and so profound. I can only be here today for under 30 minutes, and we're probably going to do it quicker than that, but it's so deep. I actually just wrote a newsletter kind of touching on this, but it's where we find our greatest power, but it's also where we have victim consciousness. And so today in this video, what I hope to do is point out how we can heal victim consciousness and reestablish our true emotional power, which is connected to all water signs, our emotions. And this moon is going to be, just because it's on Friday the 13th already, it's so aligned with this, with the divine feminine energies. All right, I'm going to go into the alignments and talk, because there's a lot of Virgo here. Virgo is about digesting. The reason Virgo and Pisces work so well together is because what we digest, what we take in, what we believe, what we hold to be true, determines our emotional power. We can either be triggered, and I wrote about this in this newsletter. I didn't put the link to the newsletter because it's a new platform. I'm going to come back after the video and put a link to it. But what happens is, if we are not established in deep truth in our own emotions, our emotions are triggered and used as bondage. Because if we can be easily triggered by the outer circumstances, which is so apparent when you look at the world stage and all the tools, the manipulative tools that are used to sway humanity one way, sway humanity another way, sway us back this way, sway us up, sway us down. And anybody who studies psychology knows that there's a psychology to navigating the collective psyche and power. We use it in advertising all the time, and there's all different kinds of things you can look at to show that our vision and our emotional responses that move the elemental forces are all connected to our emotional body and our perception of what we perceive the reality to be. So we'll look at the planets for the Pisces full moon, and then we'll go into a little bit of the archetype. I'm going to talk about Friday the 13th. I'm going to talk about the Pisces archetype. I'm going to talk about the hangman. I'm going to talk about attack and evil after we go through these. So all right, I can see your comments on this new platform, which is great. And so it's really nice to see you guys here. I didn't announce the live stream. So I'm happy to be getting this in for the Pisces full moon. So we have Virgo. Virgo is lit. Virgo is lit. The full moon is in Pisces, but it's opposite sign Virgo. And we just had that Virgo new moon. Virgo is about digestion. It's about purity because it's about when we eat. Virgo rules digestion and daily health because what it means is that everything that we become, everything that we create in our daily lives is dependent upon what we believe to be true, what we eat, what we take in, what we see with our eyes, what we take in with our mouth, with our heart, with our entire being. And this is the work I've done at Art of the Feminine for the past many, many years. We've spent going deeply into this wisdom of understanding that what we digest is what creates our reality. Virgo is opposite Pisces at the full moon. We have Mars in Virgo. Mars is a force that even though Mars has this powerful, aggressive war energy, Mars is the greatest ally of the sign of Virgo because Mars actually in the archetypes is the awakening of Shakti. And so the archetype of Virgo is about looking inward. It's the hermit, and it has to do with looking inward onto the subconscious mind to stir up the waters and to birth. And so, and also to clear things out and to purify. So when we look upon something in truth, not from a triggered state, we purify it. We transmute it. This is a key here. When we're triggered, we trigger the mirror images of pain and suffering, of victim consciousness. Whenever we're triggered, if we feel triggered, it's because there's something inside ourselves that needs healing. It's a sign. The patient needs a trigger to know to go to the doctor. In other words, we don't know we're sick unless we have an ache, a pain, we don't feel well, then we seek healing. So the internal triggers are very important, and where we have our emotional wounding will always tell us when, and how we need to reorganize the platform that creates those wounds and that holds them up. We actually want to create a force that restructures them into a new picture. We want to take the picture we have, use the energy of it. And one of the actual archetype of Pisces is reorganization. It's taking the energy of the subconscious and restructuring it into our higher body, which is represented by the work that Virgo does. So we have Mars. Mars is the power of the Holy Spirit in the deep esoteric work. It's Shakti force. It's the mother force. It's the fire Kundalini energy that shines onto the water and makes the water boil so that it gives off the steam. And so we have Mars in a really tight square with Jupiter and in an exact opposition of Neptune. Neptune is in Pisces, 17 degrees. Jupiter is now direct in Sagittarius at 16 degrees. Mars is in a near exact square with Jupiter and Sagittarius. And so this is energy to set it off. This is energy to get the parties started, to get it going, and to give courage, boldness, and authority to take action. On the negative side, it can be a collision, it can be a fall, it can be the downfall of something. So this is all taking place within this window. But we also have Mars opposite exact Neptune. Neptune is in its own sign. We're going to talk about the archetype of Neptune, the hangman. But Neptune is in Pisces. It's been in Pisces for a long time. Neptune is at 17 degrees exact opposite Mars. So what that Neptune energy does to Mars is it gives it spiritual power. And it's saying, Mars energy has to become spiritual right now. It doesn't mean it's weakened. It just means that it's meant to be used to do the great work. And so we have Neptune also squaring Jupiter, which it can make the illusions great. It can make the hypnotic trance, and it can make our dreams really, really profound. In fact, I would say starting right now through the window of the full moon into the next few days, check your dreams, because Mars, the archetype of Mars, tarot card 16, rules dreams. Pisces also rules dreams. So dreams are heightened at this time. So we have a lot of Mars and spiritual energy. In the collective, this could cause confusion and it could cause deception, but it can also cause a bold blindedness to take action. On this, in this work, we're always looking to raise this into that of the great art, to be the artists and to be the alchemizers of our own consciousness. So I see this energy as being really profound. Mars is also trine to Saturn Saturn is in Capricorn at 13 degrees, and Pluto is in Capricorn at 20 degrees. Both are retrograde. Saturn is getting ready to go direct. I'm going to do a whole video on that, because Saturn going direct is going to lead us up to the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in 2020. It's already there, and it's going to just be, we're going to be building to that. But Mars is trying these energies as well. Okay, so we also have the sun, 21 degrees Virgo. Some say 22, 21, but let's call it 21 degrees in Virgo, opposite the moon and Neptune. The moon is at 21 degrees Pisces, and Neptune, we just said, is at 17 degrees Pisces. So the sun is opposite the moon and Neptune. So that the moon and Neptune together, the full moon conjunct Neptune is big, because a full moon conjunct Neptune, especially on a Friday the 13th, is there's deep, deep, deep divine feminine spiritual power here. And there's also the possibility of illusions or delusional behavior. So if we're not tuned in to our center, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, we can feel really thrown, or almost like we're on drugs. It could almost feel like you're on something at the time of even leading in right now. The energy's here. It's pretty deeply otherworldly kind of energy. So we have the sun is also trine Pluto in Capricorn. So we have this earth energy of Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn, trine all these planets in Virgo, which is the sign of the goddess and the virgin, and that purifying energy of what we digest. All right, so we also have the sun. Okay, so we said all that. So we've got the Mars, sun, and now we have Venus and Mercury conjunct at 29 degrees. So here we have, oh, good to see you here live. So here we have Venus and Mercury are live, are conjunct at 29 degrees. 29 degrees is the initiation of the entire sign. It's the last degree of Virgo. So because we have the mind, Mercury, the heart, Venus, we have mind and heart, masculine and feminine, mental body, emotional body joined at the time of the full moon. This is an initiation. This is a collective initiation. Venus is our heart, and it's also connected to this feminine healing. It's also connected to Friday the 13th. The energy of Venus is related to Magdalene. It's related to the true Gnostic vision, the Essene Gnostic vision, and the vision of awakening and activating the potential of the divine human being in the body of light. And so Venus being here conjunct Mercury. Mercury rules Virgo, and it also rules alchemy. So we have Venus, this heart Magdalene energy conjunct Mercury, making it a recipe to do this work at the time of the moon. So that's our Virgo energy. All right, so Virgo, it's an initiation, just remembering 29 degrees. So Virgo is digestion. What we take in, we create. It's important to remember that. Jupiter direct in Sagittarius. Saturn is getting ready to go direct, and that's going to lead us up to the 2020 conjunction of Pluto and Saturn. And this energy is building right now in the collective, on the world stage. We see it in politics very, very powerfully. It's leading into new institutions, new financial systems, new breakdown of the old, possible upheaval. But it's all alchemy in the end. It's all the transformation of our consciousness. And then we mentioned Neptune in Pisces, the moon in Pisces, Uranus, 6 degrees Taurus. So let's look at some of the archetypal energy in the second part of this. So you have Neptune with the natal north node at 17 degrees Pisces. You've got Neptune conjunct that natal north node. Using it in a spiritual way, that's awakening. I mean, that's spiritual awakening. Neptune conjunct your north node. It could be the most delusional time of your life, or it could be the most profound and mystical time. So huge blessings can come as that. Okay, so Friday the 13th, the slaying of the innocent. We must slay our own ignorance. We have to slay our own ignorance is the greatest evil that we face, because ignorance takes away our power to manifest. Ignorance mutes our power. When we're ignorant, we don't know it's there. It's like Pisces being the 12th house and being down so deep. We don't realize that the greatest power we have is in the depths of our being. It's also where we hide all of our greatest wounding from ourselves. So the society, the patriarchal establishment counts on us not being able to find our power. By patriarchal, what I mean is that patriarchal is when we are absent of heart energy other than to exploit heart energy. Heart energy is great if it can exploit you in romance, if it can exploit you in lust and sexuality. Heart and art, whenever heart energy can be exploited, it actually serves the dark. And what I mean is the kinds of creations from the heart that are born out of victim consciousness or lack or not understanding the truth. When we continuously watch fantasies of ideas that keep limiting us and keep re-establishing the prison over and over, that's when the heart is serving the bondage of the system. But as we awaken, the heart gains its full power, and that's what we're going to go into in just a moment. When we are ignorant, we look to the outside for help rather than understanding the greatest help is on the inside. When we're ignorant and we're wounded, we tend to want more power. We want more government. We want more systems. We want more things to help, which can put a Band-Aid on things for the time being, but they usually too much outer structure coming down on us, too many mandates create a kind of consciousness that stops evolving. Our power, our true power, is in evolving. And I have so many things to say about that, but I'm going to save them for the next video when I talk about Saturn, because there are big changes happening here in education to create more structure and more limitation on the creative imagination. And we're going to talk about that in the next video. It's not a good thing. So when we come into our power, we naturally tend to our own garden. We naturally, when we come into our power, we take care of our own. We look into our communities. When you meet someone who's a true master or truly has tapped their own power, it's exciting to give. It's exciting to heal. When you see parents in a family that feel good, it's exciting to take care of your children and to nurture them, even though you're also taking care of yourself and and that's using children as just one example, because it could be anything that we create. We tend to create more when we understand that we have the power to do so. Anyone who is truly a master and flowing like a fountain gives and heals, becomes a healer. This is the energy of Pisces resurrected as true emotional balance, power, and sovereignty. I just wrote about this in this newsletter I just did. I'm going to come back and link it. So I've got about 10 more minutes here. I'm going to talk about the Pisces full moon. We're here to break the hypnotic trance of victim consciousness. When the power we get from being a victim starts to outweigh the power we get from our own awakening, it's not good. When we have so many systems and so many movements preaching all the different victims rather than healing the victims, we have that power becomes more seductive and more alluring than actually finding it within or creating it in our communities on our own. Anytime we outsource power, it might be seductive at first, but it always leads in a direction and we're sorry about. If you study history, when the divine sovereign human being gave up their power to choose religion, to choose education, to choose children, to choose our beliefs, to choose our gender, to choose all of these things, when we gave up that power to choose, in the end, it was the annihilation of the goddess within. It's the annihilation of the true artist. So we just talked about how the patriarchy, and I try not to use that word too much, but by patriarchy here, what we mean, we're going to use it because we're talking about Capricorn. It just means when the governing institutions that are devoid of wisdom, the Friday the 13th really meant the death of wisdom, the death of the goddess. 13 is the number of the Christ force in wisdom. So that was a sign of slaying of wisdom. Without wisdom, we have a bunch of institutions that are run without wisdom, and therefore whatever we look to, we mirror with it. If we look to institutions that aren't coming from wisdom, we start to mimic them. It's an esoteric principle that what I look at, I become. And that's a Pisces law. Reorganization of the structure of consciousness comes from visioning. When I look at something long enough, I start to become that thing. And if you've ever traveled the world and gone from country to country, region to region, notice how the people start to look alike. It's amazing. And you can, people who are around a lot of art and beauty or nature start to have this aura of beauty in their field that's so that radiates such a divine magnetism. But it's true of the opposite as well. When we look at things that are harsh and brutal over and over, we start to become them. So how can we do this? How can we not have spiritual bypassing? How can we take care of business and look at the cold, hard truth that we need to see? We need to see our wounds. We need to see our wounds to know that we have to go to the doctor. But we want to look at them and then get busy helping them. We need to speak them. Art is a fantastic tool. Writing, creating, loving is a way that we can birth the pain of those wounds and then start to transmute it. The dark, I wrote down, this is so funny. The dark loves a good virgin. So this is what the dark loves a virgin. So what that means is, and this is just thrown in kind of out of order, but when you see, and I think of Hollywood, when you see some of the most powerful and beautiful actresses that continuously take roles where they're just in this constant degradation, being like merging with the darkest of the dark over and over. At some point, that's art, but at a certain point, when it's being done over and over and over, you have to understand that it's like a ritual sacrifice of the Virgin. When those vessels that hold light continuously are being usurped by putting out a dark message, it's a victory. It's a victory for that thing which wishes to bind consciousness. A little bit of fun here and there to look at the dark forces is okay. But what we have right now is a pretty major takeover. When you look at everything, and everything is trashy, everything is about the dark, everything is about possession, everything is about the victim, we realize that there's a huge imbalance. We need more art that's about pure power. And I actually, in my work, am working with a lot of powerful artists and starting to see that emerge on the planet and plan to be a part of that. But it's big in these coming years. All right. The doctor needs objective power. This is something that came in. The doctor has to be able to. So this is about healing emotional power. We have to have some objective power. When you think about how, when a doctor or a surgeon is going to do work, they can't. And now we have. I know in Western medicine there's a problem with there being too much detachment. But in order to do something specific in healing, we have to be more merged with power and our authority rather than the wound itself. This is a law of healing. If you're identified with the wound, you can't heal the wound. So we have to identify with the wound. We have to see it, But then we have to pull back. If we are only identifying with the wound, meaning living it day in and day out, we can't heal it. We can't be the doctor. We have to be the own mother, the own divine mother of our own consciousness. We need to step up. When a doctor is going to do surgery, they have to be in their power. They have to see this patient as an objective, um, almost an object, and I'm not talking about in a negative way, but they're going to do work on to heal, knowing very well with authority and certainty. That's why it's so successful, that they can do the work they set out to do. It's like if you saw a young child running out into the street in danger, you wouldn't stop to cry tears about what might happen, or to over dramatize it inside yourself, and live through the vision of catastrophe, danger, or loss of life. The power within you, which is the adrenaline forces that come from that 12th house, that rise up, the solar forces of Pisces would rise up, direct you. You would run out and do what needed to be done. And then you'd process it afterwards. But this is the kind of emotional power we need. We need the power to be able to see what's happening and then step back. In this case, take a step back, or sit with it, and have, that's where intuition comes in. When intuition is activated in us, we can do what we need to do. We don't need to even go through such a great process, but our reason and intuition balance out. So I wanted to say that. We have to feel it to heal it, but the power to heal it is our true inner source. That's what the hangman represents. The hangman archetype represents, I have about 2 or 3 more minutes, represents the reversal. The hangman is Neptune. The hangman means the reversal of the outer paradigm, the reversal, letting go of giving power to the outer for the higher power that's within the inner. And so we have to be careful when I say that I do not mean turning a blind eye to everything that's happening in the world, because that's certainly not my work. Meaning that's not how I go about things. We have to see what's going on, but we have to have a certain detachment and release, knowing, okay, all right, this is what you're going to give me. I'm going to go in now, and I'm going to use that as an opportunity to pull up my resources and get busy being an artist, being an alchemist, being a divine, facilitator of whatever your gift is, whether you're in finance, whether you're in law, medicine, teaching, whatever service you're giving to humanity. Be on the right side right now, because it's the inner power. Now, it's a little bit tricky because some of these our patriarchal institutions are dictating and mandating the way we need to work, but you have to first find that spark within in order to overturn that and reverse it. That's the archetype of Pisces. So I'm going to read a couple more quotes, and then we'll close out. Authentic power and sovereignty. When we are in our work and in our love, we channel the irresistible divine will. We rarely attack or criticize. We simply don't have time. We're too busy creating. All energy of emotional power is harnessed for our own creativity, which is always, our true creativity is always in service of the whole, always. We are always in our highest power serving the planet. That's what we do. You'll see when people are in power, they serve. They don't, we don't have a lot of examples. However, there are people planted within that are working, so we can't disregard everyone, but it's time for a turnover. Evil is an opportunist. This quote just came in just as a download right before I went on. Evil is an opportunist that takes advantage of ignorance. Evil is an opportunist. It's a parasite that clings to ignorance and woundedness. We have to be careful. Once we're in power, we have to reach out and be able to serve those who are wanting to rise up. But when we find ourselves, and I know I can speak to this because I've been through all these stages myself, and every now and then the triggers can be successful at sort of activating something that's just beneath the surface. We all have that because it's part of our power. But when you get to that state, the best way to use a trigger is creativity. When we lash out and attack, we've lost. That's a metaphysical law. And the whole trigger consciousness we live in is lash out. It turns people against each other. People who are good end up turning against each other and warring with each other. People who are on the same side end up betraying their own. And that is what the negative forces want. When you get people are criticizing mostly other people who are doing this work. Nobody is perfect in this world, nobody. But when we, I've learned this in my own work that most of the time when you see someone really have an outburst or a trigger or an attack, it's usually a sign that it's almost always, it's not somebody who's really working yet in their creative power in the world, because when we work in our power, we get humbled. And that's what Pisces is about. Also, the hangman is humility. When we're in true power, we become humbled because we know, and because we get, you have to face a lot. When you go out into the world stage, you have to face everything. And so constantly there's energy coming at you, and it takes a lot of courage for this. But that Mars square Jupiter right now, Mars opposing Neptune, that's the kind of courage we need. Step out, be humble, because you'll get, we learn our lessons by getting beat down. We get beat down, we get our egos hurt, we get those little wounds. But when we sit with them, they turn into pure emotional power. In fact, the greatest attacks I've ever had have become the greatest allies only when I succumb to the attacks and attacked back. And it's been a long time since that's happened, but did it level me flat? And I learned those lessons in very specific instances where I turned my emotional power. I felt so wounded that I attacked the thing that was attacking me or abusing me or exploiting me. And I ended up being the one that got leveled. Now, this is different than speaking your truth. Speaking truth to negative power is powerful, but attacking has a different energy, a very different energy. I'm just going to look in. I see some of you, difference between ignorance and woundedness. Okay, so that's a good question. What is the difference between ignorance and woundedness? So, turn triggers into creativity. Exactly. So woundedness starts out as something beautiful that we need to see. We're meant to hold it like a child, like our inner child. But at a certain point, holding it too long, that quote I gave is that when we claim our wound as our greatest, when we start to feel that being a victim gives us more power than activating our power, and we see this in the world, when we're holding the victim sign and saying, this is my power, it works, I'm going to throw this in people's face and they're going to bow to me. That's when the ego is running the wound and saying, okay, I've got a wound, you better honor me. And we see this in many of the movements right now. A lot of the social justice movements are exploited, many, many good people in them, but mostly now they're being pushed and triggered with emotions. When we turn our wound into creative power, that's when we go beyond ignorance. So what I was going to say is, then I have to close out in just a second. When we turn that wound into creativity, that's when we're no longer ignorant. After a certain point, holding the wound too long, we become ignorant. We just sink back down. It's like it might not be a lifetime where we actually seek the transformation. It's meant to give us enough pain and enough of an edge that we seek out our own power. I hope that answers it. I could go much deeper into it, but there's another kind of ignorance too. So another kind of ignorance is just blocked off from heart energy. So in a way, this is really important. Woundedness is actually an entrance into heart energy. So there's a divine wisdom in being wounded. Really important to say this, but that wisdom wants to heal. It doesn't want to stay stuck there. A denial, and this is what we call when we project, this is the Jungian work of when you deny your heart energy, which is what patriarchal is, deny it and just project the wounds onto others. That's ignorance. Projecting our wounds onto other people is ignorance. I hope that offers you a little bit. I'm gonna, there was a couple quotes I want to say, and then I have to close. It's easier to lie to people than it is to tell them the truth. I think that's Mark Twain. It's easy to lie to people than it is to convince them of the truth. I believe that's Mark Twain, but that summarizes what we're under right now. We're woundedness, and I should say victim consciousness believes the wound and doesn't want to know the truth. That's what I mean when we find more power in remaining a victim than answering the call to awaken. All right. There was one more thing. I'm just looking for it before I close. All right. Yes, attack is birthed from our victim consciousness. So at first we have to get really angry. And that's going back to what I was talking about. When you're first realizing what you need to heal, you might lash out. That's when we go through our dark night of the soul, or when we go through those relationships where we have to really, really fall to the ground and become leveled before we realize that we have a greater power than that. And so it's a very sacred time. But when you're in attack mode, the wound wants to be healed. Authentic power and sovereignty, when we're in our work and in our love, the irresistible divine love flows through us. Ignorance is the greatest evil. Waking up, creating, and love is the true awakening that activates the doorway and the portal into the energy of Pisces. Pisces is pure spiritual creativity. It's the artist, it's spiritual healing, and it is the archetype that governs the full awakening. All the work I do around the light body and the body of light is actually governed in this sign and on the axis of Pisces and Virgo. So I'm just going to ask if anyone wants to sneak in a quick question. I'm going to be back soon in just a couple days. I'm really excited to do the video for the Saturn Pluto conjunction. And I'll also come back and link my newsletter. I also have some new things coming up that I want to announce. I caught my first live ever with you. Oh, that's so wonderful. Thank you. You guys, it's really nice to be here. And so we'll just close out. Namaste. Many blessings for the full moon in Pisces. A quick announcement is that I finished Light Body Yoga and I'm getting ready to do an 8-week Light Body Woman group mentoring course. The very, very first time that I've ever in all my years worked with a group of women to do this specific Light Body Woman work. So I'm going to be posting about that soon. But anyway, wishing you all beautiful, beautiful weekend. Happy full moon in Pisces, and I will see you soon.